So now they're getting ready to write their essay. How do you transition them from reading and analysis to actually preparing to write the essay?
Well, there's really no transition required. They have everything they need to write the essay already. By and large, they have all of their notes, their tree maps from Everything That Rises Must Converge and Everyday Use, as well as their annotated copy of Before You Knew You Owned It. There are copies of the text available in the room for them to refer back to if they should need to look at the context of a particular piece of figurative language. And then we give them a prompt page, which looks like this, where the prompt is at the beginning. And we display that prompt on the screen, and we use the active slate to dissect that prompt. And that means underlining keywords, looking at the verbs, what the actual directions of the writing prompt say for them to do, and having them take those directions and convert it into their own words. So frequently what we'll do is we'll take notes out in the margin of the prompt. For example, if the prompt says to look at examples of figurative language from each text to show what you think it meant and how the expression of the idea was more powerful, we might write in the margin, how did this make the story better? How did this add meaning to a particular character?
So you're showing them how to take the prompt and put it in their own words.
Yes.
So that they sort of have ownership of it and they understand what it says.
And they know what to do with it.
That's important. In the writing tests, we find that a lot of students can write, but they don't follow the instructions.
Exactly.
And they get off topic.
Exactly.
And they often will not get any credit if that happens.
And I want to make sure my students get credit. I want to make sure that the task that I'm asking them to do is an achievable goal.
So what's at the bottom of the page?
After we dissect the prompt, at the bottom is another tree map. Students have been using tree maps to organize their notes and their thinking for this essay already. So the tree map's set up for them with each story and a column for them to then take their tree mapped notes and their annotated copy of Before You Knew and pick two pieces of figurative language from each text that they feel like they can talk about, write about in their essay with some depth of analysis, answering that question of what does that figurative language really mean? How did it add meaning to the text? Why do we think the author used it?
That definitely makes it a performance task now, because they're not all going to have the same quotes.
No, they're not. They have to select the ones they think will be most effective.
So every student now is really writing their essay.
Their essay, their analysis.
And they've had to make a decision.
Yes.
They've had to make a choice about which quotes are going to represent, or which examples, textual evidence, is going to support their thesis the best.
Exactly.
And so you've sort of collected it together, and they've seen that process, but now they're really doing the thinking of creating a piece of writing that's their own.
Yes, and that selection process also gives me a very good indication of what level my students are thinking on, because the selection of the figurative language is very important.
Right.
If they choose something that really doesn't have any meaning in the text overall, then that tells me they're not thinking on the level where I want them.
Right. If they're picking quotes or examples that are just
random. Yes.
And don't really seem to have a unified theme.
Exactly.
You can sort of do some fix-up problems and have them
Yes,
go back
and I can conference with them
too far.
individually. Exactly, because again, I have to work the room.
Right.
I have to answer questions and be available to them as they do this.
You're constantly assessing, and that's actually a check for understanding.
Yes.
Because if their quotes are not sort of unified and supporting one clear idea, they're off.
Yes.
So,
and sometimes they've marked one out because either I've told them it wasn't good, or they thought they weren't going to have room to write about it,
right.
or they decided it didn't fit with the other pieces of figurative language that they've chosen.
Through peer conferencing with you.
And sometimes with each other.
So they've collected the quotes. How do you help them organize the quotes so that they're able to start writing the essay?
Okay. We use the 7 key sentences for writing. It is something that we have adapted for our purposes from a model used in Dade County by 2 very dynamic instructors up there, Matt Jelly and Tom Randolph. They do a very good job of teaching their students to write and to collaborate and making writing a collaborative process. But the 7 key sentences, if a student can write their 7 key sentences to begin with, their essay will meet all of those things we're looking for on organizational levels. And those key sentences are the attention grabber at the beginning of the introduction, the controlling idea, which some people call a thesis statement, the end of the introduction, the topic sentence for their body paragraphs, the restated controlling idea as part of their conclusion, and the clincher to kind of give their conclusion, that one swift kick at the end. And we give them space to do that on this page where they compose those 7 key. And again, I have to circulate and answer questions.
But it's very much an outline.
Yes.
Because it has their key idea, their supporting sentences, or the topic sentences supporting the key idea, and then it restates it again. So it outlines the main pieces of that essay.
That's exactly what it is.
The controlling idea is probably the most important part.
It is.
That's going to determine whether the essay is on track or off track. How do you ensure that your students write effective controlling ideas?
And that can be tough sometimes. It's about modeling for them. Some students can write an effective controlling idea on their own. Some students can write it, but they don't think they can. So they just need me to say, they ask me, they'll raise their hand and say, is this okay? And I'll go, yeah, that's good. You know, and they just need that little push to have the confidence to do it. Other students have no idea. And in those instances, I try to model that for them.
Right.
I will come up with a controlling idea off the top of my head and say, no, you can't use what I said exactly, but that'll give you an idea where you need to go. And for those really struggling students in my co-taught class, my collaborative teacher and I will actually give them a model controlling idea sentence that's already written and say, here is a written example. Here's something you can look at. Now you have to come up with your own.
Okay. And then what about for special ed students? You said you have a collaborative class.
I do.
Sometimes they really struggle with outlining.
They do.
I know if they don't have a strong outline, their essays are going to fall apart quickly.
Yes.
How do you support those students?
Well, again, modeling is one of the best ways that we find that we can do that. And sometimes that's as simple as modeling the controlling idea. Mm-hmm. For students that really need it, it might be modeling the topic sentence for every paragraph. I tend to tell my students, don't start with the attention grabber, don't start with the clincher. Sometimes they're your hardest sentences to write.
Right.
Start with the meat of your paper, which is going to be your controlling idea and your topic sentences. So it's about modeling. And if necessary, we have in the past, and we could with future prompts if need be, depending on the difficulty of the prompt, we could all write the controlling idea together. And everybody would have the same controlling idea.
About topic sentences.
We could do that too if we needed to.
That would take away some of the deep critical thinking.
Yes.
But if a student has a disability, it would give them a strong framework to
give them that organizational structure.
To focus on the skill of supporting an idea.
Exactly.
With textual evidence that they have. So it's a scaffold that you would eventually take away, but if a student just can't conceptually do it, it's a step that you can do to sort of for a minute or for a few days.
Yes.
And then maybe,
we had done that prior to this essay. We had written controlling ideas as a class and topic sentences as a class. So this essay, in fact, is just another example of stepping away from that hand-holding.
Right.
I know that my co-teacher in her resource class, when they did their controlling idea and their key sentences for this particular essay, they wrote them as a class together. And they then wrote their essays from what they had composed as a class together for controlling ideas and topic sentences.
Well, looking at this form, the 7 key sentences, it might strike some teachers as 5-paragraph essay. And there's you hear a lot in the classroom, legitimate conversations saying, why are we teaching the 5-paragraph essay? We should be, doing more organic, more. That's not what the people scoring the essays are looking for. So what are your comments on that?
Well, the people scoring the essays are looking for depth of analysis, which is what I'm looking for. And if this is a tool that gives my students a way to organize their analysis and their thinking to get to that depth of analysis, that my students have not really been asked to write in this way previously. They've been asked to write. They've been asked to write in response to literature, but not with the depth and rigor that Common Core is requiring of them. So we're in a transition.
Right.
We need to give students tools to help them, again, achieve the bar that we have set for them.
Right.
And this is one of the ways to do that. Is it a 5-paragraph essay? Sure. The next one that they're going to write is on stereotypes. It's a 4-paragraph essay.
Okay.
Because that's what it lends itself to.
Right.
This is 3 texts. It lends itself to 5 paragraphs.
Okay.
On the next one that they write that is on stereotypes, it's 6 key sentences, not 7. Because that's what that essay lends itself to.
So you're helping them see the purpose determines the structure.
Yes, and I'm willing to adapt the structure and the scaffolding that we use to help them get where they need to be.
Okay. So now let's see about how to take the outline into a essay.